Hello everyone, welcome to Module 5's overview video. The purpose of this video is to introduce you to your assignments this week. So this week we have 3 chapters that we'll be reading, Chapter 10, Chapter 11, and then added this week is Chapter 12. So I will have a video in this week's module going over what each of these chapters talks about. For now though, I'm just going to talk about our assignments this week. Be sure to look first at your discussion 4 recap video. This is part 3 of discussion 4 that we had started last week. And this video will allow you to reflect back and fill out the survey there. The following assignment after discussion 4 part 3, after watching my video, is workbook 5. This is agricultural historical ecology. This is on the origins of agriculture in various locations. We're going to be looking at some evidence of agricultural practices that were important to the city of Sumar, the ancient city of Sumar, which existed for quite some time, around 4,000 to 3,000, even into 2000 BC. And we're going to be considering accounts of agricultural context in the context of time and how cities have evolved over so many generations and technological innovations. For example, we'll be seeing how crop recording records per land area were done with early writing systems in Sumar. They had some of the earliest writing systems starting off with cuneiform in about 4000 BC, and this eventually transformed into written Akkadian around 3000 BC. And we will see how this written record provides insight into what trends in harvesting practices emerged during that time period, and how that is actually something that we still do today, but in a different way, obviously. We will also consider how this may be related to surplus production in a time period where the divisions of labor that we see in today's society had not quite developed, and they consisted of more collective labor organization. However, the ability to create surplus and to support populations that were not all involved with this means of production, the agricultural production, were still able to benefit from. And we'll consider throughout the whole workbook, workbook 5, how cities developed different, and how the particular relationships or strategies that they employed were not solely dependent on the demand of the urban population, but rather the organizational practice of agriculture. And this is what actually met the population's demands. The middle to the end of the workbook will focus on having you use Google Earth Pro. This is an application that helps you look at remote sensing images, satellite imagery. We'll look at images from the Mirador Basin, which is on the border of Guatemala and Mexico, where pre-classic Mayan sites like El Mirador originate. And here you will try on the shoes of an archaeologist trying to identify urban and rural development and compare what you see from satellite imagery of the pre-classic and classic Mayan period sites, such as those like Calakmul and Tikal. You'll also compare what you see in locations such as the Amazon rainforest, as well in Egypt. We'll be looking at Egyptian pyramids from the 4th dynasty. And here we want to, again, be sure to consider the economic dynamics necessary and how agriculture fits into these contexts. The last question of the workbook will have you identify the similarities and differences between 3 archaeological sites from different times and locations in the ancient past, all who employed agricultural practices. In particular, we're going to think about the structure and the organization of the city, as well as the surroundings moving outward from the significant streets, causeways, and buildings. So some of the added assignments this week, moving from workbook 5, is workbook 6. This is titled the Ninkasi beer recipe. So it's a short workbook, only 4 questions, but we're going to take a look at the Sumerian culture again. ancient Sumerian culture and how they produced beer. You'll even be transcribing a beer recipe from a translation of a couple of stone tablets that were written in ancient Sumer about the making, the process of beer itself. So you'll be asked to compare this process with the making of maize beer called chicha, which we will also read about in chapter 12. And we'll be taking a look at how imagery in Sumerian artifacts help piece together the practice of beer making alongside text translations that came less in the form of an ingredient recipe that we would use today and more in the form of a poetic tome. And we'll think about how legal penalties around drinking are significantly different. And they're tied to other aspects of our society. Whereas in the case of the Ninkasi beer drinkers, drinking overpriced beer could lead to ramifications for distributors, not necessarily the same kinds of penalties that we would see in today's society. I'm sure some of us would be quite surprised if this were still the case. And then our final assignment due this week is going to be quiz 5. This is on consumption and residues. So this is a 10-question quiz focusing on chapter 12 material, specifically the topic of residue analysis that archaeologists use on a variety of artifacts, mostly ceramics, to understand the varieties of uses that items might have had for cooking or processing or storing food items. So we will think about a number of questions about those methods and what they have revealed for different populations like the Sumerians and the Incans. We will also think about how this emerges in the archaeological record and what it indicates for archaeologists about the rise of surplus production and conspicuous consumption. And its connection to things such as population density and agricultural production, or how this impacts the ever-persistent and significant behavior of reciprocity between humans. Additionally, we will think about how moving past subsistence economy by integrating new social dynamics, new social hierarchies, and especially new production strategies like agricultural production have influenced so many changes for human societies and behaviors over time. And how these changes are themselves susceptible to changes over time and create new meanings to ongoing cultural practices. Agriculture still persists today and exists in a way that is much different from the past. So moving forward from the assignments that are actually due this week, we'll also see that the step 3 of the posters assignment is available to you all to start. Now, this does not mean that it's due this week. It's actually due next week. So I'll also touch on it again next week. But take a look at the overview and objectives that are written in the posting for this assignment. Do a careful read through of the directions and what to include in your poster. Especially try to familiarize yourself with the idea that you will take part in a symposium forum the week after you submit your poster. So look at the various templates of the poster that can be used to guide you in developing the structure of your poster that is well suited for the information that you're presenting, and give yourself a chance to start drafting it this week. It'll make next week a lot easier, and it'll make thinking about how you're going to present this poster in the symposium a bit of a smoother process the more that you're thinking about it. And like last week, we again this week have an opportunity to fill out the free response survey. So this is again an ungraded quiz assignment, but it's used for assessment purposes to try to refine and make this course a better course for the class, and even trying to make changes as the course progresses. Okay, so that's all I have for you today. If you have any questions about our assignments, I'm more than happy to give you more information and more detail, hopefully able to answer some of your specific questions. Okay, thank you very much. Have a good week.